So happy to see you. My name is Linda Hayward. I'm Chairman of the Board of Trustees here at the Southwest Harbor Public Library. And we are really happy to see you. Please come on in and sit
Thank
down.
you.
Don't worry about it. We want you here.
Okay.
We always do a plug for our next program before we introduce this one, just in case you haven't seen that, next Tuesday, we have an in-person only event with local poets, Paul Weiss and Crow Suncloud. So just, that should be very exciting. And April is Poetry Month, and we're getting it in just before the end of the month. We will be recording this event. And for our online audience, as Kate said, we'll be using the pass around mic at the end so everybody can hear.
No, I'm standing. Thank you. Appreciate that.
welcome.
I'm just waiting a minute for people to get seated. Okay. I'm very pleased to introduce Ann Kozak tonight. She's a freelance writer, a professor emerita at the College of the Atlantic, where she taught writing for over 40 years. And I know from attending Darren Collins talking here that writing is viewed as central to what they teach at College of the Atlantic. So you must have been central to College of the Atlantic. And if I may, we spoke to a recent COA graduate, and she said that you have a sharp tongue and inquisitive mind. So we hope to get a sense of that tonight.
Okay.
So I present Ann Kozak.
Thank you. Hi, if anyone can't hear me at any point, you should raise your hand or say something, and I'm sure Kate can adjust it. But the reason for this Ann Kozak with Josh Weiner and Sam Putnam is I'm good at writing and researching and finding out information, finding photos, searching things out, making connections. I have absolutely no ability at all when it comes to getting photos ready for a publisher online. That's just out of my league. And Josh Weiner was going to work with me on this. Josh worked with Sue Leiter and me on the book we did for the Wild Gardens of Acadia in 2016. And then he and his wife bought another business and he had to work, so that. Sam Putnam is my grandson, and Sam had shoulder surgery. He's one of these people who like to do extreme skiing. So he had shoulder surgery and he couldn't work. And I said to him, well, maybe you'd like to help with the book. And we got off to kind of a rocky start. Our modes of operating are different. I had all kinds of photos on my computer, which I said, oh, you need to download all of these and take them, and we're going to use most of them, but not all of them, and we'll see what we use and things. And then they weren't grouped in any way except where they came from, which doesn't help you. The Library of Congress is arranged, Southwest Harbor, Jessup, Northeast, so it's the park, it's just everywhere. And so we finally got going. And then Sam was coming down to help me put this slideshow together, he thought. And I had just gotten this email from the publisher saying I needed a trailer. And all I knew about trailers were that Nancy Andrews, who teaches at the college, every time she brought out a new film or did a new piece of art, she sent out trailers. So I was used to seeing trailers in my email, but that was it. So I told Sam we had to do a trailer, and he was sitting there fidgeting, and I said, Sam, come on, we gotta get things done. He said, well, the weather for the next few days is gonna be lousy, Nana. I'm going back to Bangor to get my camera and go out and shoot some footage. And he did, and I was very, very impressed. So we're gonna start with a trailer that Sam did. It's an overview of the book, and I think he did a really great job meshing the photos with the music, with the speech. He did tell me at one point for I have a voiceover in it, Nana, put that paper down and don't touch it again. This is after we maybe had gone through this 3 or 4 times. So I obeyed him. But anyway. You know, I should have said welcome to all of you. I apologize, I didn't. And Erich sent me a list of people, and so I also know there are a lot of people online that I know. And I thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoy it. I had a lot of fun with this book.
I'm gonna share. There we go.
We did this earlier, and it went very quickly. Anyway, this is Sam's trailer. While in the last 30 years, I've written numerous articles about Acadia National Park. Researching this book not only gave me new insights, but was also enlightening. Most histories of Acadia chronicle the contributions of men in acquiring and preserving land. While these contributions were critical, women also played a pivotal role. Some funded memorial paths, others facilitated George doors acquiring lands, and still others donated land. For people to enjoy the park and to find respite required developing infrastructure that provided easy access, a goal of Dorr, John D. Rockefeller Jr., and National Park Service directors Stephen Mather and Anno Kammerer. This book, which includes many previously unpublished images, examines the role of women, the activities that characterize people enjoying the park, and the development of infrastructure, particularly the bridges and motor roads. So that is Sam's trailer, and I thought he did a really nice job. I like the music, that's also Sam. And thank you. Okay, this is George Dorr, and he was essentially the founder of Acadia National Park. He came here in the 1860s, with his family. They built a house, a so-called cottage, a very elaborate cottage at Putnam Harbor in the around 1880, and he lived there summers and in the off season. And in 1914, he sold the apartment he had in Boston and moved there permanently. And he used this house to entertain people, to invite them in, to always in the effort of selling the park. That was his principal thing, is sell the park, get land, get money, etc. And he was phenomenal at it. When we get to the Skudik slide, he seemed to be able to go places and just be there and work. And he lived at Old Farm, and in the guest house they had built, which is much smaller, until his death. And he went blind. And he also expended his entire fortune, which had been very impressive, all to buy land and to get Acadia National Park a park. He was a Harvard grad. He had traveled extensively. He didn't have any children, so he could just hop on a train and go from Boston to Washington to Bar Harbor and take care of things, but always for the park. And he's got a great book, The Making of Acadia, the Story of Acadia National Park, which is in 2 volumes, and it's really very interesting. So this is Eliza Homans. She made the first major contribution to the Hancock Trustees of Public Reservation, and that's the land trust that was established in 1901 and was chartered in Maine as a nonprofit in 1903. And they acquired land, they bought some land, they held land, all in the effort of getting it ready eventually to turn over to the park or turn over to the government. And that developed over the course of the year. But in 1908, Eliza Homans made a gift of 140 acres, which included the Beehive, the Bowl, and parts of the south side of Champlain Mountain, which is an amazing gift. She knew the Dawes and the Elliots, and she wanted to be anonymous, but Charles Eliot didn't keep her anonymous. Anyway, this is the Beehive you see there, and that's the stream behind Sand Beach that leads out towards the Loop Road. You've got Great Head over here on the right. And this photograph was taken by a family that the Satterleys, they owned Sand Beach and Great Head. They hired this person in 1917, and he's a really good photographer. And Christian Van Heerden, who lives in Northeast Harbor, he's on the Wild Gardens Committee with me. He graduated from COA, so I knew him that way. He lent me this album of photographs, and this is one of them. And I feel very fortunate that I was able to get these. They were phenomenal. There were so many of them. This is great. This is Scudic rather. And Gregory, John Gregory Moore went to, he was born in Sudan. He went to New York to make his fortune, and he obviously made a considerable fortune because he died when he was 51 years old, and he had bought a place on Grindstone Neck, and he owned that whole area, the Scudic Point, Fraser, and he had built a road that was open to the public. And Dorr was at the Jordan Pond House one night for dinner, and he was sitting at a table near Louise Leeds. Leeds was Moore's widow, and she had remarried, and she said to Dorr, "Wouldn't you like to have my share of the Scudic Peninsula?" It was left to her and Moore's two daughters by an earlier marriage. And of course, he wanted them. There were two problems. He didn't have authorization. The enabling legislation for Acadia National Park did not allow them to accept gifts from off the island. It was restricted to Mount Desert Island. So that was a problem. But I mean, this is Dorr, you know, he's just sitting there at dinner, and then he gets off of the land. And in his book, he talks about the fact, well, the next day we went over in the Leeds yacht, and we saw, you know, this, that, and other thing, how beautiful it would be and what a great addition it would be to the park. He also, I mentioned that he entertained people. Well, Representative Crampton from Michigan was, Dorr heard that Crampton and his wife were probably coming to visit Acadia. This is in around 1928 or so. And so Dorr invites him to stay at Old Farm. And while he's there, he's showing them all over the park, as he does with lots of people. And he also mentioned the Scudic and the fact that he didn't have access to, it wasn't able to buy, accept lands off the island. And also that the Leeds daughters who were living in England, one was married to an English lord, objected to the name Lafayette National Park. They didn't want a French name. So Crampton says, "Oh, well, have your representative introduce legislation allowing you to accept land off Mount Desert Island and changing the name to," they decided, Acadia National Park, which was an old Indian name for the people. And, you know, this is Dorr, just, oh, yes. Passed, of course. Crampton told me he would support it, and so that was good. In 1900, J.P. Morgan gave his daughter, Louisa, who married Herbert Satterley, he's in this picture here, 100 acres, which included all of Great Head, all of Sand Beach, and part of the land, which would be on the east side of what's now Ocean Drive, going from Sand Beach down towards Linda Hole. So they built a tea house on the property. This is the tea house. It's Herbert Satterley, her husband, in the doorway. They invite their friends to tea and to enjoy the scenery and see all of these wonderful things. And the tea house was damaged in the 1947 fire, and the park later tore it down. You can still see some markings of it if you go out to the edge of Great Head. But this is Herbert Satterley and the 100 acres that Louisa, his wife, got. And they call the property Satterley Field. So here is, this is Mr. and Mrs. Satterley on the lawn here. That lawn, you can no longer see that lawn. That lawn now is all forested. So you would just have to, you know, it was there, but they were there. So you have Gora Mountain to your right, and far off in the distance is Otter Cliffs. But their house was, the pictures I saw of the house in the book that Christian lent me was really very modest by comparison. I mean, it was a nice shingled house, but it wasn't huge. And it was nestled nicely on the property there. And they allowed people to use Sand Beach. even though what they were still owning it. And she died in 46 and he died in 47. And their daughters gave it to the park in 48 and stipulated that there should be a marker, a plaque, introducing what, saying this was given in their honor and talking a little bit about them. So if you go to Sand Beach, it's just before you start down the steps, you can see it. In 1913, some legislation was introduced by a representative from Bar Harbor on behalf of a constituent to remove the tax exempt status that the Hancock trustees of public preservation had. And this made Dorr very cognizant of the fact that these lands, he had already purchased the land at Cerdamont Springs. These lands needed federal protection. What Dorr did was when he found this out, he got in a train and he came to Augusta. This legislature was in session. Representative Peters from Ellsworth was the speaker at that time and made him most welcome in his rooms at the Augusta House where he went. And they talked to all kinds of representatives during the night. And the next day, the legislation to remove the tax exempt status was defeated. And the representative from Bar Harbor said, well, he didn't really support it. He'd only offered it on behalf of a constituent. So he began this idea of developing memorial paths, and these are all in the area of Cerdamont Springs. The cane path was one that was begun, and it's marked there. 4 of these paths were funded by women and 2 honored women. So this is Mrs. Kane on the left and her sister, Mrs. Bridgham. No, I'm sorry. This is Mrs. Kane in white, and this is Bridgham in black. Anyway, they're sitting by the path, and they also gave all the land at Lakewood and the Lakewood itself to the park. And the two sisters owned it. Along with their husbands, they contributed money to buy land on Door Mountain. And there was beaver activity there, and eventually this nice memorial, this bridge that Beatrix Farron had designed and dedicated for them, was pretty much wiped out with the water, and there's no photograph that is remotely presentable of it. So anyway, but they gave Lakewood, and a lot of people swim there. It's very common, popular among local people. It's in Hull's Cove, right off the Crooked Road. This is Eliza Dietrich. Her father died in 1913 of anesthesia before some surgery. And this is the Dietrich path. On the 6th step, there's a sign that's carved into the rock that says Kurt Dietrich Path. In 1911, when her mother died, she and her father moved from London to Washington, where they stayed with his aunt, Enid Hunt Slater, and came up here came to Bar Harbor in the summer, and they stayed at Mrs. Slater's cottage called Bowling Green, which until very recently, all I knew about it was sort of on Main Street, and it was sort of no one was really saying where it was. And I was walking from the college one day with a student. We were walking downtown, and there's a pillar there. It says Bowling Green on it. It's sort of across from the Wonderview, where the Wonderview Hotel is now. But anyway, that's where she lived. And the Slaters were very generous to the park. They owned, I grew up in Providence. They owned mills in Pawtucket and were incredibly wealthy and very generous as well. This is the Homans Path. This was designed by Dorr in honor of Mrs. Homans, and it's marked by large boulders. You can see these large boulders in the step, and these what's called lintel. It's that stone arch going across between 2 pieces of rock. And this is the Beechcroft path. This was in honor of C. Morton Smith. It was donated by his wife. And George Dorr is quoted in the book, The Pathmakers. It's a cultural landscape study by Maggie Coffin, Brown, and she, just quotes a draw there saying that Andrew Liscombe, who was the chief supervisor, I guess is as good a word as any, for the, Bar Harbor Village Improvement Association, that built most of the paths and trails on the east side of the island. And they like these flat stones that made for better walking, and they also like to have ledges and curves in their trails. But Daw credits Liscombe with doing that. There was another path in the trailer. You saw a man and a woman standing on a path looking out towards the ocean. That's the Emery path. That was donated by Mrs. Anson in memory of her first husband, John Emery, and is now the turrets at College of the Atlantic. So, and he built the turrets as a wedding gift for his wife. It took 2 years and $1,000. So, in any case, it's a lot different now. You can buy the land for that. This is the Jessup Path. One of the goals of the early VIA, and I think this is true in Northeast Harbor and Seal Harbor as well. I don't know as much about the Southwest Harbor VIS, but they did develop one of the trails that when we were looking at the trailer and we saw those people sitting looking out towards Somme Sound that's on Acadia Mountain. Well, the VIS from Southwest Harbor developed that trail. It's now maintained by the park, but they tried it. But this is the Jessup Path, which runs from just off the Loop Road, just below Kibo Street, down to Sertabon and then out to the Tarn. And this is in honor of Morris and Maria DeWitt Jessup. Jessup funded Perry's expeditions in the Arctic, and Mrs. Jessup built the Jessup Memorial Library when Mr. Jessup died, and created an endowment to support it. So that's the library in Bar Harbor. One of the things that a lot of people found very interesting as I was going through various photos are these pictures with these diagrammatic lines on them. And all of the next few pictures were all taken by Leo Grossman. He was an engineer on the Cadillac Mountain Road, and he was really not only a good photographer, he had incredibly good notes about what they were doing and how things were going. And it's really a great source of information. I was privileged to be able to see the Grossman collection. And so as they were planning where this road would go and how it would proceed on the mountain, they made these diagrams on these photograph prints, whatever, I guess, photographs, prints of the mountain. And that's how they sort of planned it out and worked around it. There were also in the 1980s and 1990s, there were a series of historic American records on architecture done. And one of them comments on the fact that once Grossman ceased to be as he retired, ceased to be the chief engineer, they no longer got such descriptive reports from the people in the field. They got very, very, we use X number of rocks and 2 ton of this and 2 ton of that, and none of the nice flowery information that Grossman had provided. So that was missed. The whole Cadillac Mountain Road, 90% of it was blasted, and it only cost in the end, with everything, it cost $350,000. This was after they finally got all the way to the top. But they used the rock they blasted to shore up the road itself, and also as markers. They wanted markers that would be similar to those on the carriage roads. This man, you should notice that he's smoking a cigarette. He is called Dan Dunham, the Dynamite Man. Now, he was in charge of most of the dynamiting on the thing, and he's smoking cigarettes. Good. In one of the blasts that they did when they put the 3rd piece of dynamite into the hole, there was an accident, and he was injured and he died subsequently. But they were really, really, I mean, he's supposed to be really fantastic according to Grossman, but So Joseph McCabe was the contractor on the Cadillac Mountain Road. And you can see all of, the amount of work, the size of the boulders. I mean, it was amazing. It's not in this presentation, but there is a picture of, it looks sort of like a tractor, but it's got big wagon wheels on it, everything. And I asked Paul McQuinn, he's now the president of Harold McQuinn Incorporated, and he believed that that piece of equipment was made just to move the big boulders, because he had seen nothing like it, and that they were using wagon wheels. And then he pointed out to me they had two wheels towards the front, and they were the axles were very high. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but Paul thought it was very significant. So and this is an example of the road after the blasting. In late 1930, an architect, a landscape architect from Washington came up, and he was quite disturbed to see all of the broken rock still on both sides of the road. He didn't think that had been cleaned up effectively. So before the road officially opened, that was taken care of, but that's what you see in the bottom of this photo on both the left and the right. This is the sand beach. As you can see, if you look across at Great Head, that field is not there. And this is this is around 1890, so it's before the Satterleys acquired the land. And you can sand beach there, and people often went out for trails. By 1790, there was a road going from right by the athletic field called the Schooner Head Road. It started by the athletic field in Bar Harbor. It's just across from the Y, and it went all the way down to Sand Beach. And right now, if you were going to the Great Head parking lot, you'd go down that road when it connects there, but you couldn't really go to the end. You can see it from the loop road, but you can't actually drive on it. And they did that and then in 1890, they developed what they called Ocean Drive. They built an unpaved road from Sand Beach to Otter Cliffs. And this is one image of the road. These photos vary a lot. There's another one here that now has guardrails. And this one is really interesting because in 1874, Clara Martin, who wrote guidebooks, called this the Ocean Path, but you don't see it in any of the other photos. But, she talks about it in her guidebooks. And I did see one of the guidebooks. They very nicely brought it to me. And some of these photos, if you go back, this photo, which came from Southwest Harbor Library, it's just north of Thunder Hole by Pulpit Rock. And you don't see anything that looks like a path, at least I don't. And I have to say that one of the people who was most helpful to me is Sadie Cooley, who's the archivist here. She's just always so nice and gracious. Not all archivists are that way. And I found out, but the Acadia Publishing ends every chapter on a left-hand page and start the next chapter on the right-hand page. And so you have to get your photos to come out right. So when I was working on the Cadillac Mountain in the road section, I was short a photo. And I called Sadie and I said to her, remember that a nice photo you have of the snow-covered conifers at the top of Cadillac Mountain in winter? She said, yeah. I said, do you think you could send me that to me? Sure. Within an hour, I had it. I mean, that's most unusual. She was so nice and helpful. And Everett, you're lucky to have someone like that here. Just great. Okay, this postcard says it's the Cadillac Mountain Road, but it's not really. There's Jordan Pond on your left. This is the Lower Mountain Road going up towards Bubble Pond. You can see the bubbles off to your left, as well as Jordan Pond itself. But this is listed as it's on as being the Cadillac Mountain Road in a couple of places. And the interesting thing about these roads is while we think of the loop road as this nice contiguous piece of road, the first section was built from Eagle Lake Road down more, going more towards Kibo, like so it's a halfway between where Kibo is and where the actual entrance to Cadillac Mountain Road is. And I think that's where it came out. But all the pictures make me think that, but I'm not, I don't have any, firm authority in that. So they built that, and then they built the section from Bubble Pond down to Jordan Pond House. And that was the road for a while. And this is a picture of one of the work crews on that road. It was taken just north of Bubble Pond, and it was in the Bangor Daily. The Bar Harbor Historical Society has that photo. And this is John D. Rockefeller Jr., I'm sure most of you know. And one of the things that I realized, I mean, I had written about Rockefeller. I'd written about his son David, and I had no idea. I mean, I knew some general that he was very generous and he did all of these things, but I had no idea the extent to which he oversaw things. He not only purchased land, he paid it. He paid for the development of the land. He paid for almost all of the Loop Road. And he was very, very conscious of detail. So he would be there, supervising things, making corrections, making suggestions. I mean, he was a wonderful overseer, and he did all of this just out of his own generosity. So, and he built 57 miles of carriage roads and some of the bridges. So, I mean, we owe Rockefeller a huge debt. This is the Stanley Brook Road. And I puzzled over this a lot. These are the three arches. The arch on the left, the one you can't see very well, is going over the brook. The other one's going over the path. This is on the road itself. And it crosses Harry's Day Mountain Road over to the loop, what you call a loop, but it's that, I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, you can access this road this path, this carriage road from right across from the gatehouse at Jordan Pond, or just a little bit lower where the roads, the Jordan Pond Road and the Loop Road and Stanley Brook Road all come together. And it's a really interesting loop, and it's nice. And as someone, I went for a walk on part of that road last fall and with a friend, and he pointed out to me that when David Rockefeller gave the land in his 100th birthday, he gave all the land around Little Long Pond, and he opened these lands to the public. That meant that there were no private roads anymore, because when you were walking before on this road, you'd often see, a gate, an iron gate going across saying private, but those are gone now. So it gives you another way of looking at things. It's very interesting. And Rockefeller said sometimes Rockefeller got a lot of heat for what he was doing. And he told Frederick Law Olmsted that, I own the land on both sides of the road, and I own the land the road's on, so nobody can stop me from building it. And Olmsted wanted to make sure, Rockefeller wanted his opinion to be sure that the road fit the narrow valley. And he also designed it so that when you come out at the Seal Harbor side, you get that lovely vista of the beach and the ocean going off, which is very nice. This was another contribution of Olmsted's. Until the 1980s, the whole loop road was two-way, and then in the 1980s they made I shouldn't say that, it was two ways from Sand Beach on, or that where the entrance station is now, and they made it one way. But initially you had this tiered road, so that whether you were driving south or north, you'd have these views, and that was important to Rockefeller. So he had Olmsted design that. Again, he did all of this at his expense. And here you see another shot of this. It's built, the way it's built, it looks like it's built into the roadside itself. It's very, when you see it from the water. And then this is a path that you can walk down, and it will come out at Otter Point. And on it, one of the rocks is a plaque acknowledging Rockefeller's contributions, which again. So this is the Paradise Hill Road. And now this is the end of the loop road coming up from Jordan Pond. You go over the Eagle Lake Road and you come out to this the Jordan Pond, the Paradise Hill Road, which goes out to Hulls Cove. And it was surveyed in 1930, but was not built until 1950. And part of that was because of the war and funding got redirected and whatnot. But the road was built, the road went from more or less from the entrance to Eagle Lake, entrance by Cadillac Mountain, although that bridge wasn't there then, out to Duck Brook, and then from Hulls Cove into Duck Brook, but there was no bridge. So the road was totally useless. You obviously couldn't get across. And this is the bridge that was, when it was built, it was 402 feet long, and it cost around somewhere around $400,000. And it's when it was finally done, it's the longest bridge in Acadia, and at the time it was one of the longest bridges on the East Coast. So or not the longest bridge in Acadia, but in the Park Service. And it's triple arch. You remember the Stanley Brook Bridge is triple arched. He really liked that. And he also built the Duck Brook Bridge. This is the bridge at right at the where you enter the Duck Brook Carriage Road. And it connects the loops coming from downtown Bar Harbor Access Road to the Witch Hole Loop going up towards Eagle Lake and then ultimately to Jordan Pond. And again, this is triple arched. You don't see it in this photo, but there's a stairway on the right, so you can actually walk down the stairs and look at the bridge itself and the brook. And the brook has been roaring with all the rain. Is not let up at all. This is the final bridge when it was finally built. And so you can see that and this is something else Rockefeller paid for. So you can see that it's going, over, you can make this road work. You've got a two-way road. I'm sorry, it's the wrong thing. This is the bridge at Eagle Lake Road, where, if you're driving up from Kibo, you come to the Cadillac Mountain entrance. This is 1/10 of a mile beyond Cadillac Mountain. And the Cadillac Mountain entrance. And they built this road, it's built out of this bridge rather, it's built out of pink granite. And it enabled the Paradise Hill Road then to pass over the bridge. And this, what you're seeing here where all the rocks are piled, that's Route 233. So that you have that. And again, this is something else that Rockefeller paid for. And this bridge and the bridge that goes over, it's called the Old Duck Brook Road is now both of them had to be granted. You had to get permission from the town of Bar Harbor to build them because you were on Bar Harbor's land. And so in any case, they did it. So this is another shot of the bridge when it's finally finished. You can see this is the top is where Eagle Lake Road goes. So on the Paradise Hill Road, rather, Eagle Lake Road is underneath. Another thing that I was really lucky with, Paul McQuinn is between two of my children in age. He grew up in Bar Harbor. He was on the swim team, and so I had seen some pictures of moving the bridge. And I asked Paul if he had any pictures like that, if any pictures. And he brought me down a thumb drive, and I printed out some of the pictures that I liked. And then he came by and he said, well, they're not in the right order. And I said, well, why don't you put them in the right order and explain them to me? And he did. He gave me enough information so I could write about it. And then he read it and okayed it before I actually used it. But Rockefeller built the bridge. God, we'll go here for a second. He built this bridge, which, if you are looking at it, if you look straight ahead beyond that piece of equipment, that's the road that goes down the west side of Eagle Lake. And then it'll take you, it could take you down to Jordan Pond, you could go around on Betty's Pond, whatever. And, the bridge was too narrow. The original bridge was too narrow, and that's the original bridge. When Rockefeller built it, it was, he was asked to extend it, the width of the bridge by, 7 feet, and he said no, because it would cost $4,000, and he was sure that the town councils in Bar Harbor would not expect somebody to spend extra money like that. So anyway, so, going back to this, the Maine Department of Transportation and the National Park Service realized how dangerous the road was because the bridge was so narrow, and it's the main route between connecting the east and west sides of the island with lots of heavy traffic on it. And so they wanted to extend the bridge. And the first plan was to take it down stone by stone and then rebuild it. They got the arch over. And then Harold McQuinn, I mean, the twins got the contract. Harold McQuinn figured out that they could put get that arch on these channels with ball bearings, and they tested it to see how many of them they would need depending on the weight. And they would be able to get the bridge jacked up onto this and then rebuild the core or extend the core out, which is what they did. So you can see them here. They are, trying to separate the bridge from the core of it. This is another shot of that. And this is the bridge when it was moved, the arch was moved. And until I started working on this, I didn't realize, I've never been really cognizant. I live very close to this area. I walk here a lot. I go under this bridge, and I didn't realize, or had never noticed the fact that there might be a slight difference in color on the part of the bridge in the granite. And it's really remarkable. Paul did point out to me that today they have so many kinds of ways of making making sure the one granite matches the other, so that you would even not have that discernible one. But to move this bridge, they initially were moving it 10 feet. It got moved 13 feet, and when I asked why, Paul said, that's what would happen. That's it. It got moved 13 feet. But they had people on both sides of the arch and the bridge thing. They would take 3 steps to the north and stop. It took them 3 days to move this arch 13 feet. And then they built out the core of the bridge. Harold McQuinn, who's on the top right photo here, went to Washington and got this award from the Federal Highway Administration for the historic treatment of it. And they also got a second award from the General Contractors of America for that. And Ronnie McQuinn, who is the older man in the photo by the boat, he was Harold's son. He was president. He oversaw the project moving the arch, and he accepted that in Washington. And then when he died in 2009, his son Paul took over. This is the uniform of the Rangers going back years. Today the hats look the same, but that's about it. This is Thunder Hole, one of the shots of Thunder Hole. It doesn't have all of the protective railings and everything that currently has. And there are people all over the rocks there too. I mean, it's amazing. And they use their shoes. Women would be in heels. Nothing, I mean, how you slide on these rocks today, and I'm sure it was no different then. Anyway, that's an early shot of Thunder Hole. It was a nature cruise. The man behind the Ranger with the glasses is Anno Camera. He was initially the assistant to Stephen Mather, the first director of the Park Service, and became the 3rd director of the Park Service. And he was very influential in getting the Cadillac Mountain project, Cadillac Mountain Road project moving forward. It got held up because one senator who summited here felt that any kind of construction might impair people like him, their communion with nature. You know, it might not quite be the same, but, you know, but Cameron was very strongly supportive of having access and making it available. So he's there, and he came up quite often. This is a ranger-led tour. This, what you're looking down at, and that the near the top of the picture is Morrell Park. It was Mr. Morrell from Philadelphia owned it, and he had a horse show there, a 3-day horse show in the end of August. And he eventually gave it to the I don't know if he gave it or sold it. It's now owned by the Jackson Lab, and it's a mouse producing facility, and it's called Morrell Park. And these people with the ranger are standing right above what is the Bear Brook picnic area now. It's that at that time was a campground. And, you know, talking about the road itself. So they they added a Kibo, the road from the top of Eagle, where you come down from Eagle Lake Road down to Kibo Street. They then subsequently extended it down by the Great Meadow and past Sturtevant Springs and that beaver pond. And they started up the hill a bit, but Mrs. Palmer owned the land on the left-hand side of the road going up the hill and would not either sell or give an easement on it. So, but she did leave it to them in her will. So in the 1950s, they were able to finally finish the road and bring it from partway up the road by Cadillac Mountain, you know, around where the Precipice parking lot is, and out to Sand Beach to join up with that part of the road. So it was really began in spits and spurts. This is the original park headquarters. This is now the Dorr Museum at College of the Atlantic, and it has been a piece has been added onto it. It's considerably bigger, and it was very interesting because I remember when it was being moved from, it was the parking lot. It was in the parking lot on the corner of Main Street, Lower Main Street, and Livingston Road, where the Y has a parking lot now. This was where the building was, and they moved it, and because of the height of the building and the way everything, you'd have to take down wires everywhere as you went. So they got permission to go through the park because the park had no wires. And so they brought it through the park down Cadillac Mountain, down West Street Extension to where it runs into the Crestone Road and Woodbury Road. And at that point, they had to take wires down, but that's about a half mile from there to College of the Atlantic where it was going, so it was far less expensive. This is Otter Cliffs, by Otter Cliffs. Otter Cliffs is in the background. People picnicking on the rocks. This is an 1890s photo, and by then the town of Bar Harbor had created what they call the Ocean Drive. So we had people there. This is one of the things that people who live here and come here love to do is go to the islands for overnights or picnics. And these are people landing on Burnt Porcupine, which is one of the porcupines off Bar Harbor. And you know, they come out in a larger yacht. They come down to a smaller boat and get ferried into shore, and they're planked there so they don't have to stop on it. But you also want to note how they're dressed. I mean, you look like you're going to church or something on Sunday, not to a picnic on an island. Anyway, this is Sergeant Mountain Pond. It's called a glacial cirque. And there's another one, the bowl is also, which is between Gorham and Champlain, is also considered a glacial cirque. And pollen sources from this pond suggest that this was one of the earliest lakes in Maine, and has some people still swim there, but this is, you can see from the bathing suits, it's kind of an old picture. These are people walking on carriage paths. And this is interesting. The park identifies this older lady as Mrs. Price. And Therese Miller believes her name is really Rodick. So I don't know. I still have to work with Becky Colwell, the park, and we have to try and figure this out. But I looked again on their archive and it still hasn't changed yet. So people in the 1930s, as of now, rock climb, but what they did was they tied the rope around their waist. So as you're going up the mountain, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't rock climb, but I can imagine going up with being pulled up with something tied around my waist like that. But this is South Bubble as they're going up, and this was taken in 1938. This is a photograph from Jessup, and they call this a stroller. But it has rungs, so I would think it's more of a sled. And this lady is, you know, has the sled, is big enough for the child and the dog, which looks to be a big dog. And she goes out skating on Eagle Lake, which is fun. This is Frank Gray, he was skate sailing. This is quite popular. And the wind blew you down. You kept the sail on your shoulder, the wind would blow you down the ice. And then when you wanted to go in the opposite direction, you just switched this and you went down that way. This is a picture of George Dorr and Stephen Mather. Stephen Mather was the first director of the National Park Service, and he was an industrialist and a conservationist. And a plaque on the summit of Cadillac credits Mather with laying the, quote, foundation of the National Park Service, defining and establishing the policies under which its areas shall be developed and conserved unimpaired for future generations. There will never come an end to the good that he has done, end of quote. And he's the taller man in this photo. And he's there with Dorr. And Mather came to the park often. I'm sorry, what happened?
Okay, I think,
Oh,
is that the end?
oh, there, thank you. I must have hit it by merit.
Okay.
I apologize. And there's a plaque for Dorr by right behind the Nature Center at Sertimont. And that plaque, in that plaque calls Dorr, quote, a gentleman scholar, a lover of nature, father of this national park, steadfast in his zeals to make the beauty of this island available to all, end quote. And that notion of making it, of the beauty of the park was so central to Mather and Dorr and Rockefeller. It was really an important aspect of that, and we owe them a great deal. So that is this slideshow.
Nice.
Does anybody have any questions?
Linda?
I'll start with an important one. I see you have books here for sale. How much are they? And
25, which includes the tax.
25, that includes the tax. Thank you, just so everybody knows, because I think I want one.
Was there much sort of editorial input from the series? Because, you know, I see they.
Acadia National Park has, you see a lot of these books, with the same sort of cover, the sepia tones cover in bookstores. And I mean, one older friend of mine insisted, oh, I bought that book 4 or 5 years ago. Well, she didn't, but that's all right. She bought a book with a similar cover because that book didn't exist then. And they have this Images of America series, they're all in sepia colors. They subsequently developed an Images of Modern America, and the Wild Gardens book is in that series, and that's in color. And so, you know, there's advantage. I know there were a couple of photos in here. The one of the Homan's Path was done by Sheridan Steele, because we couldn't get any pictures of that. And then Beechcroft was done by Sam Putnam, my grandson. And so they were both in color, but other than that, they were sourced. So they don't want you to go much beyond the 1970s. They want to keep things there. They asked me about doing this book before COVID. And COVID really put a dent in things and pushed the publishing date back. I mean, there was no way, you couldn't get anywhere. You couldn't get into the park, there were no any archives, and so, it didn't come out until last, May, just about a year ago. And, it's been a lot of fun doing it. I liked working with them. I worked with the editor that I did a Wild Gardens book. And I like this series, they're really good. So.
Well, speaking of their series, I'll speak loudly. I was at Walgreens in Old Town. And they have, this publishing company has these books on the lumber industry on the Penobscot River. And paper mills probably, and the development of forestry in the Great North Woods.
The Walgreens in Bar Harbor has the Wild Gardens book, and it seems so out of place there. I mean, I was standing, it's right by the cash register. I was standing there waiting to pay something, and I looked and, oh my God. And then I offered to sign the book, and the young woman who was cashier said, well, if you want to, you can, but we can't pay you for that. I said, no, that's right. Anyway. So anyway. Are there any other questions?
How'd you sort through all those photos? did you know what you wanted
No,
first?
No.
Or did you develop?
I didn't actually, the proposal I gave to them is different than what finally came. I didn't know what I wanted, exactly. I did and I didn't. I'd written a lot of articles to the paper for the Bar Harbor Times and the Montessori Islander on, the building seawall, campground, and refurbishing it, and all these environmental assessments and things. And so I started thinking of doing it that way, but those pictures aren't readily available, or if they are, no one seems to know how to access them. I mean, I've seen them in cultural landscape reports, so I know they exist, but great. The National Park Service is a big entity, so that doesn't tell you very much. And because of COVID, I had some difficulties getting photos. I came here early on and then came back and worked with Sadie. I worked with Elliot first and then Sadie. And I worked at the Bar Harbor Historical Society. Northeast Harbor Library had a couple, and as did one of the ones I wanted came from the Mount Desert Historical Society. But I have to say, as I said earlier, Sadie was absolutely fantastic in helping me. And so the book began to say, when I found out that I had the Grossman pictures, that began to sort of focus in on the Cadillac Mountain Road. And I'm grateful to the park for that. I had seen a picture of the Satterley Gardens in a book of Beatrix Farron, and the photo credit had been to the Van Heerden family. And so I asked Christian if he, it's his family. So do you have any pictures, Christian? Oh, I'll poke around and see what I can find. And then he brought me this really marvelous scrapbook. So I had that. And then I had decided I would do something about moving the bridge at Eagle Lake, moving that arch. And I called Paul McQuinn, and then then I got some really interesting photographs which began to shape where I was going. So.
Well, great. Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.